One of the things that I do as a hobby is I read biographies of presidents. I'm always fascinated about how people lead. I know it's something that everybody loves to do. But I always think you can learn about how to be a better leader by both seeing what people do that was successful and not. And one of the people I admire is President George Washington. Shocking of shockings, the thing that he did was he had many opportunities in front of him to turn the presidency into a kingship. He did not. He did not want to be called His Majesty. He made sure that it was a two-term thing. And he really showed how to transition government from one person to the next successfully. Think about President Johnson, who also decided to limit his time in office and limit his time in power. I'm sure we can come up with any numerous other recent examples of other people who chose to do that. But it also got me thinking that when it comes to power, it's intoxicating. We all kind of want to hold on to it. But what do you do if you realize you can't hold on to it? Well, Moses was actually faced with that challenge. Moses, maybe he wanted to remain in power leading the people, maybe he didn't. We kind of never know. We do know that he was aging. And we do know that he was told by God that because he struck a rock and he didn't speak to the rock, he wasn't going into the Holy Land. He was only going to get to walk the people through the desert. In a way, he lived an exceptionally long time because not only did he walk the people through the desert, but he got to see them go from one generation to the next. And he got to work with his successor, Joshua ben Nun, to guarantee that there would be, well, can't guarantee that, but hopefully an easy transition from one leader to the next. And when we read this week, we open into the Torah portion of Devarim or Deuteronomy. This portion is not, there's no new stories. Everything that's in there kind of already happened. But how you read Deuteronomy teaches a lot. You can read it, which is how I'm choosing to this here, as a collection of sermons, of teachings that Moses wanted to give when he was transitioning from one point of leadership really to the next. Because it takes a lot as a leader to demonstrate how to relax, step back, and not continuously engage, to make space for others and new opportunities to grow. So Moses really took all of the events that the Israelites lived through, and he decided to paint a very vivid picture for his community, for the leaders who were going to follow him, and ultimately for those who were going to listen to his words. In a way, he kind of understood, perhaps in his kishkis as it were, that it was future generations that were going to read through these speeches and learn something new and fascinating. He opens it by saying, these are the words, Elah HaDevarim, that Moses addressed to all of Israel on the other side of the Jordan. Elah HaDevarim. Devarim means not just words. Devarim in Hebrew could mean things, it could mean matters. He wanted to make sure that the matters, the tools, the things, the words that we were going to need to rely on were something that we had at hand. He wanted to provide for us lessons of how do we paint the picture in our own personal narrative, in our own communal narrative of all of the events that we live through. And in doing that, I think he ultimately tried very hard to demonstrate that true strength comes not in beating somebody up, though we go in the book of Joshua and we really see that Joshua engaged in some wars, conquest there. But I don't think that was what Moses was getting at for what strength was. I think Moses was again getting at that strength is not about being the strongest physical person in the space or the biggest or like a giant lording over grasshoppers. Rather, I think he was hitting at what Ben Zoma asks of what is a gibor, what is strength. Those who subdue their passions or their evil inclinations, as it's written, and he cites a verse in Proverbs, one who is slow to anger is better than the strong, and one whose temper is controlled than one who captures an entire city. And thinking through that very verse, it makes a lot of sense for us today too. Are we able to engage in leadership or rule over people, or do we know when it's best to step back? Do we know how to lead in our families, in our communities? And do we know when to do the song and dance of giving other people the space to be who they are? I think at the end of the day, when I think through what does the lessons that Moses offers, he offers us ideas of how we want to live and exist. He asks the question, maybe not specifically, maybe not in words, but certainly in deed, of what impact do we want to have on our community? How do we want to lead by example? Do we want to, in fact, make room for others, or other ideas? Or do we want to grasp and hold on and never let go? I often wonder, was Moses like that, able to let go because he didn't want to initially be a leader, only to realize that it was through true servitude that one leads, servitude to the community? Is that what President Washington experienced when he was president, of wanting to be a leader in service of others? Is that what Jefferson saw? Maybe we also need to be reminded of those lessons of leadership, even if we are not just leading our own little life, because it's actually not little. It matters. We all matter. But we are there to serve others. We are there to lead by examples, and we are there to impart gifts of well-being to not just ourselves, but to those around us. Shabbat Shalom.